Commission meeting of September 5th, 2023. As Amy said, Sarah is not feeling well, so she's not going to join us tonight. So we've got 6 commissioners, and we've got Russ as an associate commissioner joining us. So a couple of things that I wanted to touch on tonight. I want to try and keep us on schedule tonight. So we're going to go through, take a look at the minutes, the elements of the administrative discussion we can get in before 7:45, and then we'll move through the public hearings. At the risk of being a little bit rude, I will probably try and cut people off and keep things at the timelines that we've set, unless there's a really compelling reason to do otherwise. So with that, we'll jump right into the minutes of August 22nd, 2023. Any comments, additions, corrections, or deletions on those minutes? Okay. We get a motion to approve the minutes of August 22nd then?
I'll make a motion that the commission vote to approve the meeting minutes of August 22nd as printed.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Ed.
Ed Fultz, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerbig, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Very good. Then we'll jump into the administrative discussion. The first item on the administrative discussion is the Webster land update. Amy, is Lyle in the...
He is. I've been trying to promote him, or maybe I can just allow him to talk. Oh, because he hasn't been able to come in. And there you go.
There's Lyle.
We can at least hear you.
Hi there. Let's see options. Do I want to join as panelist or stay as attendee?
You have joined as a panelist. That's fine.
That's good. Joining as a panelist, Lyle, gives you the sort of ability to speak freely. So what we want to do with this land update, I'll give a quick sort of intro. Then Lyle, ask you to sort of give us an update on where you are with respect to your side of things. And then I think, Amy, we want to talk through kind of timelines if this is to come to town meeting this fall. So Lyle and I met, about a week ago, right, Lyle? The weekend before Labor Day weekend. And essentially I conveyed, among other things, like Lyle should take a look at our past meeting, that the Conservation Commission was willing to entertain the idea of bringing this land acquisition to town meeting above the appraised price, but certainly there is some price sensitivity there. So Lyle is going to work on working with, our understanding at the time was a developer who was interested in the land and have that developer develop a bona fide offer for that land, simultaneously that offer that could then be shared with us, and we could decide where to go based on that. Simultaneously, my job was to understand our timelines, and I think we understand in general the timelines that Amy will hit on. I also reached out to the Conservation Trust to let them know that this was coming, invited them to participate tonight through Kathy Stevens if they had any thoughts or input, and essentially asked the trust to consider being involved with this even more than they already have been. Of course, they funded the appraisal, and I think have generally been supportive of the idea of acquiring it, but letting them know that this was coming potentially to a head as early as this town meeting. So that's sort of our side of things. Lyle, you want to give us like a couple-minute update on where you're at with an offer and other information on the land?
Yep, sure. That seemed to be the wisest path forward. And so, yes, I'm working with the attorney, writing up purchase and sale, getting the bona fide offer that you need to move forward with, Chase. So just this afternoon, encourage that we need that, as is my understanding that we want to have everybody informed by the middle of this month so that we can be on an arc to hit the fall town meeting. So assure that we will remain on as a warrant item, but certainly want to give you as much time as you have available to you to make all the connections you need to get us to the point where there are contributing factors, buckets to draw from, if you will, to make for the purchase. The other interesting piece in all of this, I'll let you, Chase, say as much as you think will help, but as our property abuts sanctuary that everybody loves talking about in town, they need to, by request of Littleton Water Department, put in water quality monitoring wells, and that probably needs to be downhill, which we are. So Chase, I have shared contact information, not that you need it, but shared the encouraged conversation with Matt Silverman from Littleton Water Department to see about making the necessary connections there to tie that all together for the greater good. So bona fide offer coming as fast as I can make it come, with everyone understanding that the sooner the better to provide time to get there.
And so everyone's aware that the timeline that we're working towards, the first stop is a warrant article on the town meeting warrant, and the warrant closes. Well, this sort of gets into the schedule discussion, Amy, but the warrant closes. Oh, I thought I had it up here and I don't. It's the end of next week. Is that right, Amy? 15th?
Yes, and when you said I would have the schedule, I realized I do not have the schedule.
I have it here somewhere. Anyway, where we're at is that it is not strictly necessary. I think I touched on this 2 weeks ago. It's not strictly necessary to have a price that we're even aware of to put the article on the town meeting warrant. I don't particularly relish doing that, but it is a pathway available to us. And what we would do if we were to put it on the town meeting warrant would be to fill in the details later. And many projects have been done this way, despite my disagreement with not sort of publishing the price right out of the gate. But it's something where, we would resolve what the amount would be. We would decide if we were willing to support that once we knew the amount and so on, and then essentially present ahead of town meeting to the public, as well as on town meeting floor, with the price and funding options for that might be. Amy, what else am I missing in terms of timeline there? I got the immediate with respect to town meeting warrant.
I would just also say that if we do ultimately go for one of the federal or state grants, DCR should pre-approve the town meeting language. So we need to build that into there, get a draft with town council and shoot it down to them. They're fairly responsive, and I don't think they're in the middle of a grant round right now. So, but we need to make sure to give them time.
We should also clarify, I think, Amy, you checked in with DCR on the land grant program, and
On either of them, yeah.
And they would, we would potentially be able to, if awarded a grant, receive grant funding for a portion of the appraised price. So obviously we're talking about a price at this point that would be above the appraised price, but that if the town were to buy it at the appraised price or agree to buy it at the appraised price, it wouldn't preclude us going to seek grant funding, but it would certainly be capped based on the appraised price and a percentage thereof. Amy, you also, oh, sorry, go ahead, Carl.
I just wanted to get it clear in my head. So Lyle gets a bona fide offer from a developer. That whatever that offer is the figure that we go to town meeting with, or is it we have the appraised figure, which was be different, so have two different figures?
I would say we wouldn't want to commit to anything in particular right now, Carl. I mean, in terms of what we would go to town meeting with, or frankly, what town meeting might approve. There's certainly the possibility that people on town meeting floor can modify this in lots of ways, but certainly the top end would be the bona fide offer. I would suggest we could certainly try and negotiate something lower with the
So
website.
that's, yeah, as I was trying, it wasn't clear to me. So now it's clear. Thank you.
The other piece to this, Carl, is that I think once we have a number, we can start to work down from that number with other sources of funding, including private party sources. You know, Sanctuary was mentioned, but also even abutters, engaging LCT to see if they're willing to contribute some of money. So those things could potentially bring down what the town would be voting on. And then even within the town bucket, there's the question of which buckets of money would the town utilize. And that's where, Andrew, I want you to talk a little bit about CPC and how that might work in this, because the town isn't one just big block of funding either.
And Andrew, before you do, the other thing that hasn't been stated, Chase, and I'm assuming is the case, that if the offer that Lyle brings to us is too high for us to be able to even think about affording it, we might have to walk away.
I think that's right. And Lyle and I had some tough conversations around that.
Okay. I mean, I'm not saying I don't want the property, but you know, if it were to come in at 50% above what we're even thinking, then we can't go. Sky's not the limit.
So having said that, Ed and Chase, would we still present this to town meeting regardless of what that bona fide offer comes in and say, hey, this is ultimately a town's decision, but here's the deal. And if the town is willing to, excuse me, spend what we think isn't the appropriate value, is that a path forward still?
There's certainly a path forward where the Conservation Commission could support putting it on the town meeting warrant while simultaneously saying we don't necessarily think that the juice is worth the squeeze here, but we want town meeting to support it. I think those are all things we'll have to sort out when we have a number.
There's a lot of what ifs and
Yeah.
And at this point, it's, we'll have more resolution on this once Lyle and Gretchen are able to tell us what they're looking for specifically.
So the positive part of this in my mind is that you have a large landowner who actually cares enough about the town to make the offer to the town first. I think that's
for sure.
I think that's very credible.
Yeah, this is almost a like a friendly right of first refusal.
Got it.
Like a chapter land, we have, what do we have, Amy? 30 days to execute the right of first refusal or something like that.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure what it is, but
It's short.
we get it. Yeah.
Yep.
Lyle has thus far not told us to buzz off unless we have an answer in 30 days.
Do we know when the numbers will be firmed up?
Lyle, that's kind of on you.
I put the screws to them today. So it is understood. The purchase and sale is being written.
So to briefly touch on CPA funding for the potential purchase of the Webster land. So if we were to get a CPC application for funding and eligibility request in for this town meeting, we'd pretty much have to have it written by next week. I think that the CPC is meeting mid-month. And we'd also need a solid figure in hand to bring to them. So I'm not sure how it would work if we brought this to town meeting and then said, hey, potentially this could be funded with CPA funds. That might get a little messy down the road because it's not guaranteed, much like everything, but it's certainly an option. We could potentially throw something together in time for consideration by the CPC for this upcoming town meeting. But like I said, we would need that solid figure in hand and have enough details to present to the committee then, and hopefully it's certainly a viable option for the purchase. I think we've got like 400,000 and change in the open space bucket right now for CPA, and I would think that we'd be bonding out most of this anyway, but I think it's probably our best funding option right now.
So with that in mind, does it make sense for us to take a vote to authorize Amy to prepare an application for a certain sum of money? I don't want to hamstring us, but also we there are more unknowns than there are knowns right now.
I think at this point, leaving the figure out would be best. We could just authorize Amy to move forward with putting together an application for funding and eligibility to CPC with the actual figure being applied for being added in when it's obtained.
Andrew, do you know when the next meeting is for CPC?
I think it's on, let's see. I want to say the 20th, but I think it may have gotten bumped up a little bit earlier, but I'll get that date to you because I know it's coming up fast. Hopefully it's not like next Thursday. For some reason that's clicking in my mind, but that would be a very quick turnaround.
The 20th would be very convenient as it would follow our meeting in 2 weeks. Are there any objections to moving in that direction? I'm not sure if we technically need it, but I wouldn't mind a formal vote to authorize Amy to go ahead and do that.
And I also wouldn't mind if, as long as we're kind of being a little overly formal, is just authorizing me to go ahead and talk to town council on getting the wording together. Obviously the blanks will be in there, but I'd like to run it by DCR. They had a minor objection to what was going to go in the land grant. So I just want to make sure they've got everything squared away.
What is TCR?
DCR is the Department of Conservation and Recreation down at the state.
Thank you.
And the land grant is a local acquisition for natural diversity grant. And there's also the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, LCWF, and LCWF would be the next grant that's open.
So I'll move to authorize the conservation agent to finalize the language associated with the acquisition of the Webster property with town council and DCR, and to prepare the Community Preservation Act application pending a dollar figure for the request.
Second. All right, roll call vote. Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Ed.
Ed Falls, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Very good.
And Chase, I'm not entirely sure who the attendees are, but I want to make sure the attendees know if they want to say something, they should raise their hand electronically.
Give folks just half a second to do that. Okay.
But I'm also going to let in the next round of people too. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, Lyle. I think we're going to move on from this topic then. Doesn't look like we have any other attendee questions.
Thank you, everyone, for your hard work. Appreciate it. We've been working collaboratively for years already. Thanks for your effort at this time.
Thank you, Lyle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to the 7:45 public hearing, notice of intent, 0 Fort Pond Road, Mass DEP file number we have, but the agenda doesn't.
We have it. It just came in. I don't have it right on me, but they had no.
It's okay. We'll find it. DEP had no comments. So, Scott, is that you speaking on behalf of the
It is,
0
yeah.
Fort Pond?
Scott Goddard here. How are you doing?
Doing very well. Would you mind too, since this is the first time that we've heard this particular application, to sort of take us through and orient us to what you and your client are looking for here, and then we can get into a discussion of it.
Would that be okay for me to screen share?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay.
You should be able
Yep.
to do that as a panelist.
I see it. We'll go here, I guess. So I'll start here. So this is a site referred to as 0 Fort Pond Road. It also straddles in part the town of Acton. So this site locus here, I think, is a good orientation map for the purposes of our conversation. It's 223 Newtown Road in Acton by its Acton address. And then that's where the house is located. There's the red dog leg off the rear into Littleton that creates some water access to the pond in Littleton. The goal and objective of the owner applicant is to create a walking path that's mulched to get access down there, that red skinny section out to the pond, to then install a removable dock with ramp down into the pond to allow access for small watercraft, and then on the upland portion of the slope to put a small little boathouse for accessories like, you know, kayaks and life jackets and such like that. So that's the effective proposal. I've got some photographs and things I could share with you guys if you'd like, if that would be helpful, to get an idea of the area. There would be one tree along the shoreline that would be proposed for removal. Otherwise, the goal is to keep this as a fairly small footprint endeavor, only walking foot traffic to get down there, and only, you know, small residential uses within the area. I think, you know, this is a good site to have a site walk on, so that you could see in person what's being proposed and where it's going. So I would understand if the commission would like to do a site walk. I'd probably recommend it, you know, unless you thought it was so innocuous to vote on it tonight. But that might be where we end this conversation. There's also some site plan I could share with you that shows it. I'm going to stop sharing this and open up a different share. This site plan here is done by Alf Berry, who is a professional land surveyor. So what it does, it shows the house in Acton at 233 Newtown Road. This is the sliver of land that goes out to Fort Pond in Littleton. This shows the location of the pond edge. These B flags is bank of Fort Pond. Fort Pond doesn't have any BVW associated with it, so it's just a well-defined bank at the toe of what is a fairly reasonably pitched slope. You can see by those topography lines. What's shown here is the location of the dock. This upper portion here would sit above the wetland flags so that it would not be a direct alteration of bank and would rest on the ground surface. That would be an aluminum ramp. This ramp would be able to hinge and go up and down as the water elevations change. Then we would have a floating section here and here. Those would be able to float and go up and down on posts. The posts are proposed to have the 1.9 inches posts, 8 of them in total. 2 in total would be augured into the pond bed, and the remaining 6 would sit with the small aluminum foot on the base of the pond. That would be removable each season, taken in and out of the pond, and then be able to be stored in this small shed structure that's shown right here. So we do have the contour line shown here. This, it's not really well shown, but this dashed dot line is the 100-foot buffer zone, and then the dashed dot line right here is 50 feet. So the small, I think it's 8 by 20 or so, sort of shed structure that would be put here would be set 50 feet off of the pond, and any equipment used in the pond for recreational purposes could be pulled in and out of the pond and placed inside of the shed. The path that would come through here is proposed to be a 5-foot wide mulched footpath, where the only activity to create it would be hand removal of small shrubs, navigating around any trees, and then using mulch chips on the ground surface to establish the path location. So that's the proposal. DEP did issue a file number. They had no comments on it, and I'll turn it back to the commission. We have not, well, one other thing, we have not yet filed for the Chapter 91 license, but subsequent to the order of conditions issuance, this will go to DEP for a Chapter 91 waterway license.
Thank you, Scott. One other element of this that might be worthwhile for you to explain is the waiver request with respect to wetland, Littleton's local wetland bylaw and the 50-foot no disturb zone.
Yeah, that is true. So there is, a waiver needed for work proposed within 0 to 50 feet to create what we would call a water dependent use of the dock for access.
And that the waiver was included with the application, right, Amy? I thought I saw it. Maybe I was looking at the wrong thing.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. With that, turn it over to the commission for questions about this proposed project.
I actually have a couple. I'm wondering how stable a mulched pathway will be with that incline. I mean, will it
So that's
ultimately wash down, or?
That's a fair question. We use mulch products in a lot of ways as stabilizing mechanisms on slopes of this nature. It's a, I mean, it is a decent slope. I would encourage the commission to come out and view it for themselves, but it's not like a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 slope. I mean, it's a little bit more gentle than that. And, there's a pretty broad flow of the watershed as it comes down toward Fort Pond. There's not channelized areas along that slope. You can see the contours here are fairly uniform across. So there's sheet flow along this whole stretch of land as it enters Fort Pond. So I don't expect to, if we were in a channelized area or some kind of a gully or rut, maybe the mulch wouldn't hold up to a velocity of water because the mulch can move. But this is really just to define a spot for the purposes of foot traffic as it moves down. I imagine this will compost over a season and be embedded into the ground, pretty good. So I'm optimistic this would be, not unlike leaf cover or some other kind of mulch surface used that is a stabilizer. The topsoil is not being removed, so there's not going to be direct access to unstable, silty subsoils or anything like that. I'm not too worried about the mulch as a problem.
Okay. The other thing I was wondering about when you were describing the dock, will there be permanent structures in the water?
So there's 2 auger posts that would come in and out each season. They sort of screw into the base of the pond. So there's no permanent structures associated with this pond proposed at all. It would be seasonally taken in and out.
Okay, because I was thinking that the ice would just take them away anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But no, thank you. I appreciate clarifying that.
How often will the mulch have to be replaced?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair question for sure. So, a lot of these woodland paths that I see created, there tends to be some discretion with maintenance by the owner applicant. Sometimes people will just put it down as an initial application and then leave it be, just pruning back any overgrowth that might come in over time. If you get an overhanging branch or some herbaceous material come through or something of that nature. So we haven't specified a mulch replacement protocol in this application. I would think it's subject to user discretion. If the commission feels differently, I'm sure that's a reasonable conversation to have.
And how long is the walkway leading out to the floating dock?
The whole length of it?
From where it enters the pond.
So this is a better zoom in here. So are you asking about areas even outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, or just?
No, I'm just looking for the length of the walkway leading out to the dock. Trying to get an idea how far out the dock is.
So this is a 5-foot wide wood chip path that goes all the way down to, say, a foot or two above the top of bank. And that's where the edge of the ramp would sit on the ground surface.
So you got 2 4x8, so it's 16 feet of aluminum walkway out to the floating dock, it looks like.
Correct.
And then 6x8 or 8x6. So is it 8 foot wide by 6 foot deep?
Yeah, at the very end, the platform at the end is 8x6. Correct.
So
prior to that, it's a 4x8 walk ramp.
So that's where the 22-foot dock comes from. 8 plus 8.
And 6 is 22, yeah.
It's 8 plus 8 plus 8 is 24 minus the 2 feet. Upgradient of it is where that comes from. So there's 22 feet into the, beyond the bank of Fort Pond is a fair way to say it. I wanted to make sure that the contact point to the ground here was placed above the bank so that there wouldn't be foot traffic on the bank itself to keep the bank stable.
And then the sitting area is how big?
It's only 5 by 5, and it's just a cleared spot with wood chips on the bottom. It's more like a pull-off area where you could put a chair or rest a kayak or something of that nature.
So there's nothing being placed there structure-wise.
Correct.
And I guess to be clear here, that's on the existing slope. You're not planning on leveling that?
Correct.
Okay.
So speaking of leveling, Scott, can you describe the shed? Like, is it going to have a foundation? What kind of site work are you going to do to I assume make it level and to put the shed up?
So that's a fair question, and I would need to get some more detail from the owner applicant on the specs of the construction of that. My understanding that it was going to just sort of be, on surface at grade, but let me get you some more specs on that and be more prepared for that.
I'll say with respect to that too, my general preference, it would be for that to not be tucked right up against the no disturb zone unless there's a strong compelling reason for that, other than frankly moving a kayak, an extra 15 feet.
Understood.
So while you're working with your client, I'd certainly like to see that moved back a little bit further, if that's feasible and doable.
Yep. No, I appreciate that comment.
So is there a reason why you wouldn't orient the sitting area in the dock in a position to leave the tree? It looks like, we've marked one tree and coincidentally it's right in the space where the dock is going to be located.
So yeah, I think that it might be possible to avoid that tree. I think it might be possible to avoid that tree. So we'll take a look at that a little harder too.
So Scott, one of the things you suggested, and I I appreciate you leaving it open that we might close this tonight, but you're probably right. We're going to want a site walk on this. Is this marked in the field so we can understand the general orientation of the path, and in particular the location of the dock and sitting area?
Well, the dock will be the dock and sitting there will be self-evident from the wetland flags that are present.
Okay.
Because those are present and right there. If you would like the route of the pathway to be staked, we can probably accommodate that, or flagged. I think the way it's
I'll tell you
drawn is sort of like subject. I would call it, subject to some interpretation being out there, where maybe you move a little left, a little right to kind of skirt around trees and such like that. So I don't know. I think it's the intent of this plan is to be representative rather than narrowly specific, which is typical of a lot of path projects, trail projects.
And I was about to say, I think as long as the intent is to install the path without removing any trees, I'm comfortable with that sort of constructability, infield constructability considerations.
Yeah, but when you do go out here, those flags along the bank are going to be quite evident.
I'm curious why the jog after the shed, it jogs over and now puts it in contention with the tree, but wouldn't it be easier just to keep going straight?
Again, a fair point. I think the intent here with respect to the Chapter 91 waterway license is you're supposed to try to give a bit of a berth between your property boundaries and the siting of your docks. The Chapter 91 program prefers that there be a spacing of 25 feet from where you place a dock relative to your neighbor's property lines, to avoid, for example, having two docks right next to each other at property edges, or obstructing a person's use of a boat with your use of a boat. That kind of conflict can arise, or water access rights, those kind of things. So the siting of this placement was centrally placed within the lot to maximize the distance somewhat equally between the two lot lines. That was the logic here. But I understand your question. So, but if we can maybe shift it a little bit to avoid that tree, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
David, I see you've got your hand up. Once the commission's done with questions, I'll let you go ahead. But I want to see if any other commissioners.
Yeah. So David is the owner.
My apologies.
His comments might be pertinent.
That's why I let him in. There is another comment over the intended 10 days as well.
So I have one more comment, Chase.
Go ahead.
So there's obviously be some gas brought down to gas up the boat, since there's probably no marinas on Fort Pond that I know of. As well as, in addition to the gas being rolled down the path or carried down the path, whatever, just seems to me that if this is going to be your active waterfront, I guess I'm just anticipating a lot more action down on the shoreline. And I know they get the 5-foot path going down to the dock, but as well as I do, you get a group of people down there, depending on the size of the boat, and all of a sudden you get 8 people, and they're all kind of hanging out on the bank. And that is beyond our control.
Mm-hmm.
All we can do is permit what we see. What people do is a totally different situation. But it is something that we need to think about as we're looking within this 50-foot.
Well,
I agree with you, Carl.
The commission would like to let Mr. Harrington chime in. Maybe he could explain what his desired use is of this area. That might be helpful.
Yeah, I'm open to that. Go ahead, Mr. Harrington.
Hello, yeah, thank you. Well, our intention is really just for kayaks and canoes, so there wouldn't be any we didn't intend to have any powered boats with this small dock. It just wouldn't be convenient for us, so it's really just so we have a place to swim off of, fish, kayak, and canoe. And the intention of the boat shed is really just dock storage, so I don't have to haul it through the woods back to the house, as well as any kayaks or canoes that we get, and life preservers and such. As far as the tree, I wanted to make a comment on the tree. There are other trees along the shore, so that's how we picked that particular spot. Is we're avoiding other trees, and that particular tree is horizontal and sticking out over the water, and so that seems like if you were to pick a tree that may not make it another 20 years, that would probably be the one. And it's the way that it sticks out horizontally from the embankment. It would be difficult to put a dock in without removing that one tree. So that's why that location is there, because there are other trees in the other spots that don't go out horizontally from the bank, but are in a more normal sort of direction. And the purpose of the wood chip path is really just so we know where we can remove brush, so that we have a path down to the dock, and where we can't. That makes sense.
David, could you clarify also too the proposed boat shed and how you intended that to be constructed?
Yeah, there would be no leveling there. I would ideally I would put in some sort of a treated wood and a gravel bed in order to level the shed. So you wouldn't level the ground, but I might wheelbarrow some gravel there to make the base of the shed level.
Isn't that leveling the ground?
I think he means not excavating the ground.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We're already 12 minutes past when I wanted to wrap this up. So what I would suggest is that we probably need a site walk, but also that it would be useful for the applicants if there are meaningful substantive comments for the commission to get those out. I have a couple that I want, and then I'll open it up for the rest of the commission. One is Scott and David, you've committed to a replanting plan. I would like to see details on what species, what size, what locations. Maybe I've missed those somewhere, but I did see a commitment to replant at a 2-to-1 ratio for the trees removed. And if species and locations aren't specified, I would like to understand those, because we don't want to just doom some saplings by putting them in the wrong location. Another element that I would like to see when we meet again is some discussion of construction sequencing, and in particular the equipment that's going to be used. You know, are we talking about building this manually, or are there going to be skid steers? Because depending on the equipment, particularly this close to Fort Pond, we may be interested in even simple things like biodegradable diesels, or keeping power equipment farther away from the shoreline. So understanding that. And then the third is whether or not there's a willingness to restrict sort of the uses going forward. Like in particular, well, I guess not necessarily restrict, but understand, like, do you plan on using a four-wheeler to bring people down to the dock or not? Like these kinds of things, particularly where there are long-term uses that will include equipment that has oil or hazardous materials on it. That's kind of where I'm sort of paying attention to here. So those are three things that I would be interested in next time we meet. And members of the commission, anything else in particular that's real high value that we want to see next time we meet with Scott and David before we schedule a site walk?
The tree that comes out over the water. I know in other ponds I've seen the geese actually go underneath for the shade on the heat of the day. So do we know if any animals might be using that, or if there is a reasonable alternative shade spots for the birds and fish or what have you?
I was going to kind of go along that line too, but I think we need to get out there and take a look, right? And then we give our opinion. We could talk about one tree for the next 20 minutes, but I think we'll go out there and have a discussion on site, right? And let them kind of move on. Because looking at an aerial, the entire place is overgrown. It's trees. So like again, with Chase's motorized vehicles, I just don't see it. Looking at an aerial map, this is looks like it's tough enough to walk through right now. But I think if we just get out there and look at it first, and then we can.
I have one more question, Chase, before we wrap.
Sure.
When you bring just want to have a quick understanding, or the applicant give us better understanding. When you're taking the kayaks, when you're getting in them, are you getting in them from the shore? Are you getting them from the dock? And when you're returning in the kayaks are not the easiest things to get in and out of. Where is that all going to take place? And then after they're done with the kayak or canoe trip, does the kayak get placed on the floating dock, or does it get brought back every single time back to the shed? Just a couple questions, just clarification, because I'm worried about the bank, as you can tell, getting overused.
So I guess I could answer those right now if that's okay. The idea would be there'd be several people, me and my wife, would go down and put the boats in the water, and they'd be tied to the dock. And then when my wife is going down to use the boats and I'm not around, she's able to do it. And that's the only purpose for having the dock. Otherwise, I could. There are other people who put boats on the shore down by the bank, which I think probably has more of an impact, and don't have a dock at all. And we could do that if. My wife would have trouble getting the boat back to the shed by herself. So that's the intention of having the dock there. We put the boat in the water for, much of the season, and it stays there tied to the dock.
And Mr. Harrington, that may be something that we'd like to see maybe memorialized in an order of conditions or something like that, that the bank wouldn't be utilized for ingress or egress from the Fort Pond.
There is still one other comment also.
Yeah, I see that, Amy. We'll get to that in just 1 second.
But we have to use the bank to come back to our house, right? Is that right? Isn't that egress or?
Well, David, they're talking about the bank of the pond itself. That meaning the edge, effectively the edge of the water. We're not talking about the
okay, so you walk off the dock up the path, and you'd stay on the path.
As opposed to beaching your kayak and coming out over them. Yes.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of the dock. You don't have to beach the kayak. You just bring it down to the shore, and then when you're not going to use it for 8 weeks or whatever, then you put it back in the shed.
Okay. Very good. I do want to move this along. We do have one public comment. Mr. Bergeron, are you able to give us your comment?
I am. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So John Bergeron at 227 Newtown. I'm just one of the abutters. I just had a question about the location of the shed. When we put in our house, we were told that there was a 100-foot do not disturb. I'm just wondering if the shed just needs to be located within 50 feet or just outside of 50 feet, to be specific. Why wouldn't it just be out of 100?
Strictly speaking, for all intents and purposes, there's a 50-foot no disturb zone. And outside of that, from 50 to 100, it's possible to permit something within there. If that shed were outside of 100 feet, then the Conservation Commission wouldn't have jurisdiction here. So at a high level, 0 to 50 would be probably a no-go. 50 to 100 would be install it with conditions. And you heard us comment about potentially pulling it back from the 50-foot zone. If they were to pull it back all the way to 100 feet, we wouldn't have jurisdiction. But the applicant is allowed to propose something in the 50 to 100 foot that we would consider.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate all the thoughtful discussion.
No problem. Okay. With that, what I'd like to do is get a site walk scheduled. Scott and David, sometime in the next 2 weeks, is that generally workable for you guys, or are you looking for
no, for sure. We'll be flexible. If you want me to coordinate, outside of this public hearing, I can do that, with staff. Otherwise, we could do it now, whatever your typical protocols would be for that.
My preference would be to take a general poll of the commissioners to see who's available and then get something on the calendar. I'm going to suggest that perhaps typically the end of the day, about 5:15. Does that generally work for folks? I can figure out the day, but
5:15
With
is
some
usually-
advance, that's no problem.
do we want to try, today's Tuesday, do we want to try this Thursday, the 7th at 5:15?
Yeah, well, I've got other hearings
Okay.
that night I've got to attend to. That's going to be tough for me.
No worries.
Yeah, how about could you guys do it Friday? Is that too hard to do?
I personally can't.
Friday, if anybody cares, but yeah.
You can't come Friday, Amy?
No.
Okay, let's scratch that then.
Or
Perhaps
maybe maybe instead of this Thursday, next Thursday. How about that?
next Thursday, the 14th. Amy, does that work for you?
Andrew, we have, when's the OSRP? Is that 5:30
I think it's 5:30. Yeah.
on the 14th on Thursday?
Okay.
Wednesday would work,
Wednesday, the 13th.
or Tuesday, for me anyway.
Tuesday would be better for me, but
Yeah.
Tuesday, the 12th. Any objections to that?
You can do either one.
Okay, let's go for Tuesday, the 12th at 5:15 p.m. Scott and David, Amy will follow up with you on confirming that or letting you know if there's a change, but certainly
Yeah,
put that in your calendar.
and where to park.
Sounds good.
Okay, I think we've got what we need here and we're running pretty late already. So I'd like to move on. Scott and David, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to the 8 p.m. Public hearing, notice of intent, 30 Mill Lane. We do have a Mass DEP file number for this
Oh,
as well.
you've got 107 Metawanaki.
Oh, right. That's right. You flipped these. My
Well,
bad.
if you don't mind squeezing that in real quick, then I can.
No,
be
that'll
out of
work.
Here for the night.
Very good. Go ahead, Scott.
So we're Peter Scott is on the call as well, the owner in this case. We have been monitoring the growth over there for the last month. It looks excellent, actually. Let me see if I can do a quick screen share. Can you all see that?
Yes, we can.
So this is 8/18. So this is maybe 2 weeks ago. We went each week. We were for the 4 weeks or so. We gave Amy an update with updated plans. Each week there would be aggressive repair of anything. So we had, for example, this will be an example here. There were a couple little rivulets that would develop right away. Peter did an excellent job going right back out there, taking care of filling in any of these little things, getting the grass to grow. And then within a few days, this is an example of a repair that he did. So the erosion controls held, and I haven't gone out there this week, but I'm expecting it to all look, very, very good like this. But I'm very encouraged by the rapid stability, the responsiveness of Peter to get this slope stable. I would welcome a site walk maybe with Amy to look at it and see if she's satisfied with it, and ask the commission to consider lifting the enforcement order.
Let's go ahead and schedule that site walk then. Scott, I don't speak on behalf of the commissioner. I don't think we'd be comfortable closing it without Amy having a chance to take a look at it.
I think that's perfectly fine. Amy, you and I can coordinate offline, maybe even on that same day.
I think there should be at least one or two commissioners there also.
Yeah, I'd like to have eyes on that as well, please. But nonetheless, I do think we can get something on the calendar. Amy, would that Tuesday the 12th work if we did it at I don't know. It's not going to take long to look at 4:30.
Yep, that's fine.
Scott, does that work for you and your client?
We'll make it work. Yeah.
Any other takers on the commission?
Yeah, I can do that.
You can.
Perfect.
Go work until 5.
Yeah, we tried to tuck that 5:15 in for you, Andrew, but it's getting
I
earlier.
appreciate it.
You guys at Harvard are real taskmasters.
We are.
Okay, so we'll plan a site walk for the, what's the address there? Matawanaki, anyway.
107.
107, yeah,
Matawanaki.
right. Mhm.
Okay, so we'll plan a site walk for the 107 Matawanaki enforcement order at 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, the 12th. At least myself and Michael will be there. Amy, please circulate it to everyone, and maybe the day ahead of time to remind everyone. Certainly would like as many commissioners there as are interested and able to take a look. Scott, one question. Are you planning on sending us photographs of the site as of last Friday? I noticed we didn't get a sort of a report last Friday.
Yep, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. It frankly, it doesn't even need to be a long write-up, just some photographs of what it looks like as of, today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that, Amy. I jumped over your revised schedule here. Okay, now we're going to open the 8 p.m. public hearing. Notice of intent 30 Mill Lane. Who is here to speak on behalf of that project?
Hi, good evening. My name's Maureen Harold from Norris Environmental Services.
Hi, Maureen. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. So as this is the first time we've taken a look at this, would you mind, maybe we're running late, try and give us maybe the 5-minute version of what's going on here and what you're proposing on behalf of your client, and then we can dive into some questions and comments.
Sure can. I will bring the plan into the screen if that works.
Yes, please.
Okay. So we filed a notice of intent with the commission to raise an existing single-family dwelling. Here's the existing dwelling. It's hash marked on the plan. Abandon the existing septic tank. The existing septic tank is shown here. We'd like to construct a new single-family dwelling with a garage, deck, bulkhead, walkway, driveway, septic system, rooftop, and driveway infiltration, grading, and associated utilities within the 100-foot buffer zone. Just to give you a quick orientation, the wetland boundary is shown in green on the plan. I highlighted the 50-foot no disturb in this purple color. The erosion controls are shown in orange, and the 100-foot buffer zone is shown in yellow. We are relocating the septic system, at least the leach field itself, outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. We are requesting waivers from the commission. One of the waivers is to work within the 50-foot no disturb to actually abandon the existing septic system that's there right now. If possible, we'd like to maintain this area as lawn. It's a sliver of area here. The house itself is dilapidated. It was built in 1960 prior to the Wetland Protection Act. The second waiver we requested from the commission was for an increase of impervious area in the buffer zone. So the commission allows 1,000 square feet or 5%. We're under that 1,000 square feet. We're proposing 720 square feet, but we're over the 5%. If we were to comply with the 5%, it would allow us an additional 67 square feet. So we are requesting a waiver for that. I did update the notice of intent report. I did provide calculations to the commission to show that we are in fact providing the rooftop infiltration. Here's a Caltech chamber here, as well as one over here, and the infiltration trench. The engineer has provided these calculations to just show the commission that they are sized appropriately for what it is we'd like to do. And I can open it up to the commission with any questions or concerns.
Anybody want to get us started on this one?
Where is the existing outline of the existing house?
Okay, I am going to trace over it. Here's the existing house. It has these hash marks through it right here.
The spot where the existing septic is that not already grass?
Yes, it is grass.
Is
And
it
here's-
generally a general practice to rip out a pre-existing septic or just fill in the tank and leave it?
So you are correct. Title V likes you to fill in the tank and crush it. But because that is work within the 50 foot, I did want to request that waiver from the commission.
So did you say DEP would rather have you pull the tank and refill or fill or not?
Standard practice is you fill the tank with sand and you crush it and it stays in place.
And that's what you're proposing to do here, correct, Maureen?
Yes, correct.
But the basis of the 50-foot waiver is that a portion of that and the erosion controls creep into the 50-foot.
That's correct. And if possible, we would like to maintain that area as lawn. As you can see, it's a minor area. It's existing. I don't know if the commission will be open to it, but we thought we would ask.
If it's lawn already, I don't know why it would matter.
Well, because it's using area within the 50.
There is a pretty steep slope, essentially
right.
right at the wattle line. And in fact, Amy, Mass DEP had comments on this, correct?
Yeah, Maureen, I don't know if you've seen these. These actually seem a little unusual to me from DEP for a buffer zone project, but DEP, they did issue the number. They just say the commission may want to consider a vegetated buffer consisting of native plants between the limit of work and the edge of BVW, where a buffer zone has already been developed. And may also want to consider including a perpetual condition requiring permanent memorialization fixtures such as a fence, landscape boulders, signage, that sort of stuff.
So there is quite a buffer around the BVW itself. As Chase mentioned, there is a slope down to the wetland that's completely wooded. Obviously, I don't have an existing tree line on the plan, so that might have been the disconnect with DEP. We're certainly open to some sort of demarcation. I don't know if that's what the commission typically requests for buffer zone projects.
The only thing I would say on this project is north up on this, especially on the left-hand side, I didn't see the right-hand side so much, is that, you know, the lawn kind of goes out and then just dives off, and there has been lawn clippings and assorted stuff thrown over the edge. So, you know, along the property line or the 50 foot or whatever the commission might want, something like boulders or signs might be warranted.
Yeah, Maureen, certainly you if you looked at modern projects the last handful of years, you'd find a lot of boulders and signage. Older projects less so. Can we go back to a more rudimentary question here? The wetland delineation. Amy, have you had a chance to take a look at this? Are you comfortable with the wetlands as they're delineated on this plan?
Yes, I'd actually gone down there and flagged some wetlands because it was unclear initially if that wetland was which is an off-property wetland, was within 100 feet. So it's pretty steep up to down there. And then as you start going up and to the left, that wetland gets wetter.
And there's no stream that, just sort of looking at the orientation of the wetland, I might guess that there was a stream or some surface water feature feeding into that. Is that
you get, you know, sort of not even really swale, but there's a bit of a drainage from the right-hand side, maybe, that goes down towards 1A. There's no kind of scour or anything like that. As you start getting deeper in the wetland up to the left, it may eventually become a stream, but nowhere near this property.
not relevant here? Okay.
My 2 cents on using area within the 50 is a no-go as far as I'm concerned, because just we don't allow anything within the 50, and if it's something's going to be taken out, then it should just be, you know, let to go or revegetated. No,
Carl, are you comfortable with the waiver to the elements of the waiver to remove the septic system within the 50?
well, I think there's a public benefit there. Yes.
Are we saying remove or do what the DEP says of fill it in?
I use remove pretty loosely, decommission.
Okay. I'd rather see it stay there, not dig up everything.
Tend to agree. Maureen, the other element of this is the new proposed dwelling is substantially closer to the wetland than the previous dwelling. Is there a reason that that proposed dwelling needs to be, looks like 31 feet off of Mill Lane, or can that move closer to Mill Lane and stay farther from the wetlands?
So the front yard setback is 30 feet.
It is, okay.
And that is on the plan, and I can shift that over if you would like to see that. On the notes.
Okay. It's not
Right
the first,
here.
not the first time I missed something on the notes. Okay. Another question related to this. I see you have some trees marked on the plan. It's unclear to me if you have all of the trees in the work area marked on the plan. Do you propose taking down any trees within jurisdictional areas?
So, for the commission who has not been out here, there's a fairly large tree out front that's outside the buffer zone. There's a tree here within the leach field that will need to be removed to install the leach field, again, outside the 100-foot buffer zone. There are some trees around this area that we were hoping to trim and not remove because they are overgrown quite a bit. Is that something that is acceptable or allowed to do some trimming?
I would think we would want it described, and we would also want to know ahead of time what the plan is if in the process of trimming it you determine that the tree is not healthy and needs to come down, what the replacement plan would be for that. The other element of this that we would certainly want to understand is if there are trees in jurisdictional areas that are potentially within the area of construction, what the plan is to protect those trees. Essentially, we're typically looking at protecting trees more or less from the drip line into the trunk.
Okay.
And if I understand where the trees are located, it looks like the construction could be reasonably close to those trees. So what we wouldn't want to see is like heavy equipment running over the roots or something like that would ultimately compromise the trees.
Well, I guess I agree with you. It is close to the construction. I don't know how the commission feels about it. You know, if we can play it by ear, if that's a correct way to say it. I mean, the intent is to not lose the trees or damage the trees, but in real world reality, even if we do all the protective measures, sometimes that happens. So is there a way to provide protective measures, but also have the caveat that if the tree does get damaged, we'll replace the tree?
I would tell you, we would look to you to tell us what the replacement plan would be, but we're typically looking for, depending on the size of the tree and species and so on, more than a 1-to-1 replacement. So, you know, let's say you remove a 16-inch mature oak tree for some reason because it got damaged. What we don't want to see is a, 4-inch DBH red maple planted in its place.
Okay, so then what size would you require?
We're typically looking to applicants to propose their replanting plan, especially here where we don't even know what species or size of trees we're looking towards. If you can provide us with that information, we can start to help you hone in on what the replacements might be.
Okay. I do have some photographs of these trees that I can certainly bring in and we can take a quick look, if that's appropriate.
I'm going to tell you it's probably going to be more useful to us if you can simply measure them and label them on the plan.
Okay.
Commissioners, are you comfortable with that? I want to make sure I'm not getting too far out on a limb
Yep.
here.
Nope, I agree.
Or
Yeah,
would you
so-
like a site walk this, or this is another one if the owner's amenable that you can self-guide from the curb even pretty easily? If you want just at least do a drive-by and get a sense.
Maureen, is the house currently inhabited?
I don't believe it is. It's in pretty tough shape.
I would suggest this for this property, given that we're not really looking at the wetlands, but rather the sort of construction and proposed sequencing that, Maureen, if you could reach out to your clients and get permission from them to allow the commissioners to walk the site at their convenience, that would be a lot easier for everyone. And then if you could follow up with Amy with an email confirming that, she can let us know that we're good to go take a look.
And the applicant's hand is up, Bill. So
Okay.
Yes.
he can speak.
Bill Attender here. How are you?
Good. Go ahead, Bill.
The property is vacant. It is, as Maureen mentioned, very dilapidated. I have no issues with anyone going on the property at all at any time you want. But just again, take note that the property is pretty dilapidated, so use caution.
Understood. Very good. Thank you for your permission. That really sort of eases the scheduling crunch.
Yep, no worries. Thank you.
Okay. Time again is of the essence. Commissioners, is there anything else substantive that we want to pass along to Maureen or Bill before we close this one out? And well, close it out is maybe not the right wording. Before we words here.
Chase is done.
Continue. There's the word. And I'll get there eventually. Before we continue this.
Do you want to give any guidance up or down on boulders or signage or anything like that?
Please.
Or you can also, commissioner can also think about it after they've seen the site.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It sounds like it might be pretty well marked if up to lawn and then turned into woods pretty clearly. I'd like to look at it before I tell the client they need to install a line of boulders.
I'm in the same boat.
The only other thing I can see is the driveway, the part of the driveway that's in the 100 to make up for all the hard surface that's being put. Will it be asphalt or something that water can get through?
The driveway is proposed to be asphalt, but it will be pitched to the infiltration trench, so that water will be infiltrated. And again, the engineer has provided calculations to show that it's sized appropriately to handle the runoff.
And the Coltex are for the roof runoff?
That's correct. We have 2 Caltech chambers, one at the rear of the property and one at the side.
One additional question. How big is the existing house and how big is the square foot of the proposed?
Oh, good question. Just a moment. So I can tell you what the existing impervious is, which would include the house and the existing driveway. It's 1340 square feet. So obviously the house is a bit smaller than that. And the project proposes 2060 square feet within the buffer zone. So we're proposing a net increase of 720 square feet.
Say those numbers again, 13 what and 26?
1340 is the existing impervious within the buffer zone. The project proposes 2060 square feet.
Oh, 2060. Okay, I thought you said 2600.
and net increase of 720 square feet.
Thank you.
Maureen, it might be helpful to memorialize that on the plans, both the size of the pre and post, the size of the dwelling, the amount of impervious area. Sort of a table. If you will.
Yeah.
Okay. Maureen, if you're comfortable with it, we'd like to continue this to 2 weeks out. And conservation commissioners can go take a look at this in the meantime. Are you okay with that, Maureen?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much then. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Just one question. When's the next meeting? 2 weeks from now? Is that correct?
Yes,
So the 19th?
correct.
Thank
And
you
I'll
very
I'll let
much.
you know the time.
Okay, thank you.
Not only am I stuttering, but I've lost our agenda.
We're on to the enforcement order.
Very good. Okay. Okay, we'll pick up the 815, the enforcement order on Thompson Ipswich Drive, Gallagher Foss Place. Is Mark? There's Mark. Mark, you want to give us an update on those two enforcement orders? Probably trying to keep them as separate as we can and understand the evolution of the two properties.
Sure. Let me go with Foss first. So the house is continuing to be constructed on Foss. We expect to start the septic system later this week. Coincidental with the septic system, we'll be removing the shed that is part of the enforcement order in the back of the property. We have been, we've ordered the plants for the area that was disturbed that you've previously approved. And we expect that to be, the plants to come in and be installed in the month of September. And our last step in the completion of the project is the installation of the water line, which we anticipate for the 3rd or 4th week of September. So that's the enforcement order RDA I think we have over on Foss, which is the left-hand side of the street.
Amy, what is the sequence of the removal of the studio relative to the plantings? Did we condition the removal of that on something? I thought we did.
Yeah, it was little, and I don't have it with me, unfortunately, but it was a little loosely stipulated that the shed, or whatever you want to call it, Stu, would come down the same time that the restoration is done, because that's all buffer zone work.
Okay.
The shed has to come down in order for the restoration to occur, because the majority, well, not the majority, but some of the work on the restoration is in proximity to where the shed is now.
Okay.
Yes. And when they came in for the demo permit for the shed, that's what triggered me saying, well, we got to make sure that the plants are committed to going in.
Yep. That's consistent.
I do have a couple comments. I walked the site today. I appreciate your willingness to let us just take a look at things going on out there, Mark. I have some concerns about runoff from the site. There's a lot of material that's accumulating on Ipswich around the catch basin on Ipswich. There's not really any controls there. So there's a couple inches of sand and grit that's accumulating there. And I imagine washing into that catch basin and then discharging down at the end of Ipswich into the associated wetland. I do think we need to take a look at that. Frankly, I don't know. Between you and me, I don't know if we have jurisdiction or the building department does or who does, but having that material discharge into the wetland at the end of Ipswich is not going to be okay. So
I went down there this evening. Amy had suggested that I go for a visit. Not that I don't visit there every day, but I don't pay attention to every catch basin every day. I can't do it tomorrow, but Thursday. It's not going to rain till Thursday. I will put a course, the words are going to escape me because I'm tired.
Tell me about it.
The silt sack in the catch basin Thursday morning.
Okay.
And I will bring the sweeper over and we will sweep the street. Although, Chase, I'm going to say that I don't think all the sedimentation, if you looked at that catch basin, it's kind of a little bit uphill from where we are. So I think there's sedimentation coming from the further down the road and washing with these biblical water events. I'm not saying that we're not contributing a little bit, but I don't think
I'm not sure I agree with you, Mark, but nonetheless, I think we got a resolution on it as long as you're willing to take it, and I appreciate that.
Happy to take care of it. No problem.
Okay.
Done.
We could just agree to disagree with that one.
It's fine. We're professionals. We can do that.
Very good.
Ipswich, we've had biblical rains. We've done absolutely nothing. We've paid for the testing. The engineer has indicated, and so hasn't the Board of Health agent, it would not be a good time to go out there for our last perk because of, not only the quantity of the rain, but how fast it's coming. They would like to wait till later in September for us to go out and do that last perk and then make that determination of whether it's a buildable lot or not a buildable lot. But we will get it done hopefully pretty quickly now that we've got these 90-degree days and hopefully no more biblical rains coming. So I would anticipate that in September we should have an answer, not the 19th, but probably before your last meeting in September. We can come back and revisit that with you.
That is the last meeting.
Oh, the 19th is?
Yeah.
Okay. When's the first one in October?
I won't be here.
Probably the
Early
third.
on. Did you say you're not going to be there?
So I think it's the 4th, whatever that first Tuesday is.
Yeah, October 3rd.
October 3rd, according to the agenda.
I will say, Mark, I'm getting a little worried about this one. One of the things that we have historically seen in the past is enforcement orders with things like replantings that linger for too long. Sometimes the work doesn't get done. And I'm starting to get a little bit nervous about that here.
We're amongst ladies here, so I won't use an expression that I would prefer to use, but let's just say that there's enough work that you have in front of us outside of these two small projects, which will maintain my interest and make sure that you don't get sidelined with us not doing the work. I live in town. It wouldn't be a very good thing for me to, push us aside. I've told you since the beginning, that's not our style. And, we'll prove that to you very shortly, but
I appreciate that. And one of the things that I certainly want to open it up to the commission, but if we get too much farther down this and for some reason we can't replant this fall, I'm going to want to understand what our options are to ask you to bond that. And I know we had talked about doing that at some point.
Yep,
and I know there's some complications doing that, but I would, if we can't plant this fall, it's something I would really like to see us explore.
I would assume the next time in the first week of October, when we come back, we will either be providing you with a planting plan or we'll know that it's a buildable lot. And then we'll be providing you a different planting plan than what we propose, obviously, if the entire lot is going to be revegetated.
Commissioner, comments on Foss Place and the enforcement order? Is everyone comfortable extending that, continuing the discussion of that until October 3rd, 2023?
Sounds like there's a plan in place, at least at the moment, so sure.
Yeah, so which one is it? Is it Foss or is it Ipswich that you haven't performed the test on?
Ipswich. Foss is a house already.
Oh, I'm sorry, I mixed those up.
That's right. So I'm comfortable with Foss. I'm more concerned with Ipswich myself too, Chase, where, I mean, you can call it biblical rain, but it's the rain of the future here. We're not, we're headed that way. We're not going away from that. So
I sure hope not.
Within reason, but yeah, the bigger storms are coming. And like I said, hopefully it stays dry, but the tropics are heating themselves up too, and already talking about more hurricanes. So
I know. It's been a hellacious summer, kind of like it was 2 years ago.
Right. So there's trends. That's my point.
Yeah, there is. Yep.
Okay, but Kyle, you're okay extending this discussion on the Ipswich EO until October 3rd?
Yeah, I think at that point, then you're running out of time, right? If there isn't a plan in motion at that point, then yeah, I would agree with you, Chase. We'll have to have some other conversations.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, then, Mark, looks like you're still up with us, but we'll move on to the 8:20, the continued public hearing on the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation in 95 Taylor Street. Mark or Amy, I'm not sure which of you wants to go first, but I know we've got Oxbow on the hook to start their work soon.
Oxbow's coming out tomorrow at 2:30.
Okay.
And to answer your question earlier, Amy, I will be there. Although I'm not sure I'm going to be wearing hip waders to go
Oh,
out and
yeah.
where the center of the stream is. But yeah, we've completed our testing there, subsurface testing, and our testing for our subdivision. We've been in. I'm a little disappointed, and I hope planning board members can hear me tonight. We had originally proposed an open space which would have less overall impact, less road. We would not have lot lines. We'd be able to cluster the houses closer to Taylor, but we've been asked to do a conventional subdivision for the property. Tomorrow, when Oxbow goes there, I don't think they'll have answers tomorrow, Amy, but
No.
I'm sure they'll have a good idea of where the stream is in conjunction with the edge of wet. I don't think there's any argument about the edge of wetland at all. I think it's just a matter of where the center of the stream is and how that impacts the riparian areas. So we'll wait and see what their report is, hopefully shortly after that. And then we'll be able to do better planning and come back again, hopefully the first week of October, and have a more robust conversation about what they found and how the agreement's in place and how that impacts our existing plans.
So what I'd like to do, Mark, is continue this with your agreement to actually just 2 weeks from now, because one of the things the commission had expressed is an interest in potentially walking the site, but we
Absolutely.
also wanted to understand what Oxbow found. So I imagine if we continue this to 2 weeks, we may not have everything from Oxbow, but we'll be in a position to go do the site walk so that 2 weeks from then, once Oxbow probably has it all buttoned up, we're in a position to move forward.
Yeah, I would invite you out for whenever you would like to schedule the site visit after Oxbow does their site visit tomorrow. And I agree. I don't think we'll have, well, we may have the information. I mean, they could readily agree or make adjustments, and we can see what that is at that point. We have cleared an area because there's heavy poison ivy. You know, so through the testing of the property, we've been able to clear areas that, you know, you can manage without being up to your waist and poison ivy.
So let's do this. Let's continue this to October 19th.
No, September. September 19th.
I'm sorry, September 19th. Understanding that if things come in from Oxbow, and maybe the commission could get out towards the end of next week to take a look at this, we can coordinate that via email if something does happen. But if not, we can coordinate on the 19th for a site walk.
Yep, we'd look forward to seeing you.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Any
Have a
other
great
comments
evening.
from the commission? Sorry, Mark, one last second. Any other comments from the commission on this one before we move on? Okay. Very good. Now you're free, Mark. Appreciate it.
Have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Okay, move on to the 8:30 public hearing, notice of intent, Oak Hill Conservation Land, Sanderson Esker, which we also, I think, have a Mass DEP file number on. Amy, you want to
Yes,
take us through that
we
one?
do. What I would suggest, unless you object, is just push that to later. There's nobody in the audience for this, and can get us a little bit back on schedule while you deal with the other two.
Okay,
After this.
that sounds good. And there's no strict timeline on that work, right?
Well, I still want to talk about it tonight.
Oh, you mean push it to, sure. Got it.
Push
Okay,
it to the end of tonight.
we'll move it to the end of tonight. Okay. Very good. Then we'll take that suggestion and move on to the 8:35 continued discussion, tree removal of 49 Manawanaki Trail. If we can let Dave in.
Oh, sorry.
So last we left this, we were looking for an arborist to come take a look at the tree. I know there's been some correspondence with the property owner regarding whether or not this is necessary. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't yet had an arborist take a look at the tree. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Dave, if you can briefly sort of update us here in 1 or 2 minutes,
Yes.
and we can move forward.
Yeah. Thanks for letting us come in and talk about it again. So just to settle on what's happening and our concerns, we have a tree which an arborist told us should be removed because he's identified it as a hazard tree. And as his documentation showed, we brought him in to tell us how to preserve the tree as we were preparing to rebuild a wall around the tree. And he told us that the tree is a hazard and the only safe course of action is to remove it. At the third commission session on this issue, which was 4 weeks ago, we were, like you said, we were told that we need to bring in another arborist to evaluate the condition of our tree. We late last week, we got a note that there was one arborist that was willing to look at the tree this week, and they wouldn't have been able to look at it before now at this point. So no, they haven't looked at it yet. Nobody's looked at it. But for our thinking, more to the point, we would like to understand why the commission doesn't accept the assessment of the certified arborist who evaluated our tree, the arborist that came in and evaluated our tree. The person is a professional certified arborist with over 40 years of experience. He's been a town tree warden for decades. As we all know, his reputation is important to him with every report that he provides, so he would only be providing assessment that he believes to be accurate. The main point we'd like to make is this, that with a certified arborist having identified the tree as being hazardous, it feels risky and dangerous to us to leave it in place. We don't know how we could leave it standing and feel safe about it. I mean, how could anybody? So it's hard to see why the arborist report would not be recognized as valid and that the tree would be permitted to be removed. So that's our what we're interested in discussing.
So I'll take a shot at answering this and then open it up to the commission to fill in the blanks. It is a standard practice of ours to pursue peer reviews where things are not entirely clear to us. In fact, you just heard us discuss that with respect to a very different topic, but conceptually the same, regarding the resource area delineation on 95 Taylor Street, where there the applicant is spending many thousands of dollars to pursue a peer review to check the work of a similarly qualified set of engineers and scientists working on that project. And so although we don't typically do this, we haven't done it often in the context of trees. We also have not been in a position in the past where we have a tree that's not obvious to us to pose a hazard. And so consequently, we've asked for a peer review on this, consistent with our practices in other areas where we are a board of lay people and we're seeking sort of independent information on behalf of the Conservation Commission. Anyone else want to fill in the blanks there? Anything I missed? Go ahead, Dave.
So, I mean, I would say that one major difference between looking at delineating a wetland, whether it should be, you know, another 10 feet over here or 5 feet over here, and in this case, is that nobody's going to get hurt if the one is overridden by the other.
I would disagree with you pretty strongly there. We deal with peer reviews with respect to flood zones and all manner of things that are dangerous.
Yeah, so what happens if we bring in a second person and they say, I think it's okay to leave it there. So there's a professional difference, I guess, maybe you could say. But we have somebody that is trained and has decades and decades of experience with this that says, in his opinion, the only safe thing to do with this is to remove it. If it were his tree, he would definitely remove it because he considers it to be not safe. And in that case, we would, you might say, what would you say if you had two different opinions in that case? And one of them was saying it's definitely not safe to leave it here.
I mean, I think it depends on what the conclusions are, for sure. We've explored a lot of different options in terms of replacement and so on. And I don't think anyone has said that you can't take down that tree explicitly. What we're looking at is what are the options to preserve that tree, or does it have to come down? And if it does have to come down, then the subsequent questions are going to be, what are the restoration requirements? And I would expect we would have a different set of expectations for restoration if it was truly and unambiguously a hazard and not. But that's just me speculating. I'd rather see what the report says or what the conclusions say.
Okay, I just, one last thought I have is that it's hard to imagine that the commission and the town would want the responsibility and the liability of some injury or damage if that were to happen.
Or death.
And after a certified arborist has said this really should come down. I mean, it's hard to imagine why we're going through this in the case of, something serious as this, and somebody that has this experience is saying, that this is hazardous and it's not safe to leave it there.
I would say from the Conservation Commission's perspective, it is also hard to understand why we can't simply replace the tree if it were to come down with a reasonable amount of replacement. But there also seems to be recalcitrance on that side as well. So
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I mean, you asked us for a proposed plan, and we were told that you'd rather have this and this, and we said that was fine.
I'm not sure that's consistent with my recollection of things, but in any case, the rest of the commission have any comments on the need to go forward with another review of this? I'm certainly just speaking in the context of what we've already agreed to. So if we want to change direction.
I concur, Chase, with you. It's similar to what we've made, requests that we've made from other applicants. Not specifically for an arborist, but in other occasions where we're uncertain.
I don't think it is uncertain. The arborist was very clear that it was something that needs to come down, and that was not our wishes. What we wanted to do is to keep the tree. We're trying to protect the tree. And he clearly stated it needed to come down because of the liability issues of it falling on someone. He said that it's going to fall into the lake. And if anybody is out there on on that side of the tree, they're going to be killed.
Or hurt.
I mean,
it depends. I mean, possibly nobody would be, but there's certainly the possibility. Yeah.
So, and we feel uncomfortable having a situation like that because we already had one situation like that where there was a tree that was leaning out onto the lake, and we, roped off a huge area around it on the lake with a sign saying, beware. And stay back, stay out of here.
We tried to get arborists, we tried to get tree companies to come in and remove it. Nobody would touch it.
And the tree fell 4 minutes after a mother and her baby were kayaking under it to look to see what was going on. It was a horrifying experience to have happened. I don't know. I mean, maybe you've never experienced trees falling and the damage they can do and things like that. I don't understand.
The position that the Conservation Commission is in this instance is that it is not clear to us that it is in fact a hazard.
And are you an arborist?
Which is precisely why we would like
We
to
are an
have
arborist come.
Okay, we're going around and round on this, and we're not getting anywhere. The question for you is: are you or are you not going to hire an arborist, or pay for the arborist hired by the Conservation Commission to take a look at the tree?
So, yeah, so the only question we had tonight after, discussing what our concerns were was whether we're still being required to do that. And I think you're saying we are, is that right?
I'd be happy to poll the Conservation Commission. I think that's perfectly appropriate here. I don't want to speak on behalf of people who disagree. Andrew, could you do a sort of a straw poll for us to get the Conservation Commission's opinion on whether or not we need an arborist here?
Certainly. So I'll start with Michael.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to abstain.
Ed?
I don't have enough information. I have an opinion, but I don't feel right now that I'm qualified to give you one.
Kyle?
You're muted, Kyle.
You're muted.
Sorry. My answer is yes. I thought we got to this reason because we already voted and agreed that the Conservation Commission thought it was in the best interest to have a third party look at this. I'm a little confused why we're doing this again, personally. I'm not trying to create headaches or more work, added costs, or anything like that for the applicant. And again, I'm not an arborist, and that's why we want a third party to come out and perform this.
Fourth party.
Carl?
Yes.
Chase?
Yes, I'd like an arborist to take a look.
So I think at this point, I'd probably go with having an arborist come out and take a look.
Okay.
You should say that they're going to be liable for anything that happens.
So I will line up, I forget their name, Harvey Graymont, which I think they said was $300. I'm not sure if they can still come in this week or not, but we can touch base tomorrow.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for coming in. We're going to move on to the 8:40 p.m. continued public hearing, abbreviated notice of intent, 5 Caliva Road. Amy, you want to give us an update? I understand some files came in earlier today on this one.
Hang on a second, let me line these up somewhere. I lost them.
And then Ms. Chapin, once Amy gives us a quick update, we'll turn it over to you to fill in any blanks.
Sorry, my things got lost here for some reason. There it is. So this is what the owner sent over based on the wetland flags that Metro West Engineering put up, at least in part while I was out there. This just came in, so I don't know, maybe Susan can explain what's being looked at here. And it's, I think, a little confusing.
Hello?
Yes,
we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I was confused too, and so I called for clarification, and then they went back out, sent a video. Let me see if I can blow that. Let me hang on a second. Okay, I'm going to blow up my copy here so I can see it. They measured a bunch of stuff that didn't have to do with my camp. I'm cottage 1, and the stripes on it is the square footage of the camp and the deck. the proposed deck as it stands now. And so they measured from the little red circles or the flags up. And that's where it came from, the flags to the proposed deck.
And what are the flags?
From the wetland people from Metro West.
Those are the wetland flags. Okay.
So there was some question whether it was wetland or not wetland, and we've determined that this is where the wetland begins. And they went out and measured it. Cottage 2 is my neighbor's camp. I just paid a lot of money for them to tell me where their flags are, I guess. Anyway, so we're Cottage 1, that's what we're dealing with. And that is the feet from the wetland flag to the new proposed deck that's kind of already there.
Is that 50.2?
Yes.
And presumably the flags are 50 feet from the lake edge.
The flags are out a little bit from the lake edge. The pond is where it says lake, that dark line. That's the lake, and then the flag, and then the line that's 50 feet, 0.2, and then my camp.
Do we know what the distance is from the edge of the lake in this drawing to like the end of that little arrow line though?
You know, like this?
Yeah. That's, I don't understand what this means.
Looks like 10 or 15 feet.
Yeah, say 15 feet.
They were just there to do the wetland marking because the lake is beyond outside of the 50 feet of the wetland marking.
So you have if I understand this right, what I think we're looking at is we've got the bank of the lake. We've got the wetland in from that, I don't know, 15 or 20 feet. That's those flags. And then 50.2 feet from those is the cottage.
Yes.
So the existing shed is sitting right here?
Correct. The existing shed is within the 50 feet marker. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're trying to understand what we're looking at here. Amy, does it make sense for you to go take a look at these flags and make some sense of this in the field?
Yeah.
She was there when the flags are put in, right?
No, I was there before he started hanging the flags and walked around and showed him what was needed. And then I believe I had also asked for the data sheet for one of them. So I'm not sure if he's given you those yet.
No.
Is the intent to take the existing shed down?
Yes. The existing shed's at like 43 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And the new shed is back in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Really, you can feed lemon pie.
I'm sorry?
Sorry about that. I was thought I was muted.
I think what we're struggling with here a little bit, Susan, is that this it is maybe not the most conventional plan set that we've ever seen, and we're struggling to interpret it a little bit.
It's just what I didn't understand it, to be honest. I sent 1,000 texts and he finally went out and then sent me a video, which I also sent to Amy, and he's like, this is where the flag is. This is the 50.2. This is where the deck is. And then I was like, okay, I understand what you did. But you don't have to watch it. It's just him talking.
Amy, do you think you could maybe get out there, take a look at what this looks like in the field with the flags?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Susan, I know you're really trying to move this forward, and you're going to hate this question, but can we continue you for 2 more weeks so Amy can go take a look and we can try and make some sense of this?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure I'll be available in 2 more weeks, but I will try. I will be down in Mexico.
Okay.
Where I have service, but I don't know if I'll have service.
Very good. I don't think if you asked us to make a decision tonight, I'm going to guess you wouldn't like the decision because we would not really have all the information we're looking for right now. So probably in your best interest to push it out a couple of weeks too, even with the travel constraints.
Okay, that's fine. Whatever.
Okay. Commissioners, any other comments here? You guys good pushing it out 2 more weeks? Okay.
I mean, I thought I just had to be outside of the 50 feet mark, and apparently I am. So I'm, I don't know what else you need, I guess, my question.
I would say based on that plan, it's not clear to us. We're assuming right now that those flags represent the wetland lines, and 50.2 feet is, I think, something that we'd like to see in the field off of the flags, and Amy can certainly go out there and measure off of it and make sure that we understand what that plan is depicting so that we can evaluate what you want to do relative to the Wetlands Protection Act and the town bylaw.
So you guys just want to verify the 50.2?
And understand the plan. Or understand the layout that you've provided. And I think Amy probably also will request when they delineate wetlands that collect data sheets on the soils that they encounter. And I think Amy will want to take a look at those too. Given that we're talking about 3 inches of being outside of the 50 foot, it is typical for us to take a look at the wetland delineations prepared by others and develop an opinion about whether or not the flags are appropriately placed. And 3 inches makes a big difference here.
It does for most guys. Just joking. I'm just joking. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. I mean, I just have to have it done by next July. So however that looks, that looks.
Very good. So you're comfortable with us continuing this to, I keep saying October, September 19th?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Amy, we're going to come back to the 8:30 public hearing and the notice of intent for Oak Hill Conservation Land, Sanderson Esker.
It just disappeared on me again. Wait, no, I got it. Okay, so do you all know where this is? This is a sort of extension to Oak Hill that's across Oak Hill Road. I can show you a locus map if you need it. Let's see. It's been so long since I've screen shared. So here's Oak Hill. The main parking is down here. So this is what we call the Sanderson Esker. The AT&T, there's a little parking area right here that actually I believe the Gallagher's built as part of their development over here. So to create this loop and keep people from trampling through the wetlands and able to cross without stepping on stones, we're proposing 2 boardwalks. Boardwalk 1 would be in this general area. It is a little bit more narrow up here, but we'd have to move a bunch of rocks and maybe take down a tree. So we went down here on the mud flat with that for that one. And there's just barely some bordering vegetated wetland, and some of that And then Boardwalk 2 is what is now the dry exit of that intermittent stream, which is maybe, I think, I say like 8 feet. And it's again, so people aren't using these rocks to get across, especially when this is flooded or icy or full of snow. So those are the two boardwalks, built pretty much the same as all the other boardwalks. Boardwalk 1 is a little bit long, so we're assuming is probably going to need a culvert on that sort of mudflat area to make sure that it's stable. The ledgers will be outside of any of the resource areas. And Boardwalk 2 is the same, but it's so it's not as wide, so it doesn't need any supports in the middle. And that is it. You've seen these all before, so if you have any questions, let me know. People are lined up and ready to get crashing on this.
Who is it? Jim working on all these? Does he have help or
God help him.
projects or anything like that?
Yes. I've been talking to Aggregate basically all summer because he keeps saying they want to do some community service and like the idea of boardwalks, but I can't get hold of them. I'm going to double check and see if there's any scouts around that can help, especially with getting the materials in. The hills down to these areas are pretty steep, so getting the materials down is going to be a bit of a challenge. And then once it's down, these boardwalks aren't going to be too tough.
Hey, Amy, I'll follow up with Jim. I'd be happy to knock on a bunch of neighbors' doors here and put together a bunch of people who are at least capable of moving stuff around. We'll let Jim do the smart stuff, but
That would be great. He thinks he can probably get his tractor in through Andrew Halloran's property. He's offered that, so you might be able to get stuff down to crossing 2 here. Crossing 1 is at a really steep hill, so I think it's going to take hand movement to get stuff down there. And I'm still trying to see if I can get some scouts or lacrosse team or somebody to haul some stuff down there.
it all looks good to me, though. And we have a Mass DEP number for it.
We have a Mass DEP number 898, and I filed a waiver for the public use. So
Any comments, or can we get potentially a motion to close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions?
And do we have a DEP file number? I'm sorry if I missed that.
yes, it's 898, 204-898.
So I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions for the Oak Hill Conservation Land Project. Mass DEP file number 204 dash, I already forgot.
898.
898.
And a waiver, please.
And a waiver.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Carl.
Tom Melberg, aye.
Kyle.
Carl Maxwell, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, very good. Thank you for doing all that, Amy. Okay, let's see. We got to come back now to administrative items. All we got through in the first 15 minutes was the Webster land update. Amy, you want to run through these and maybe bypass the ones that are not mission critical?
Yeah, so there it is. On the leash law, we would like to recommend to the select board to pick, at least at this point, 4 areas where dogs will always have to be on leash. And this basically was raised because this new trail would be one of those areas. And these have been discussed, I believe, by the dog leash committee in the last, I don't know, couple of years or whatever it was. So one area was Bumblebee, mostly because there's so many small children down there. Cloverdale, the same thing. Plus, it's the site of the proposed ADA trail. Long Lake Park, which is actually already signed up at the nesting bird area that was identified as part of the original grant in there. These 2 boardwalks, because they're kind of behind houses with a lot of small kids and dogs. And just as an aside, Sarah Doublet, LCT is looking to do this on Sarah Doublet because of the cultural resources out there, and Smith has already posted that area as a 100% leash area. So I guess basically just looking for confirmation or discussion that you think these are the ones to start with, if there's other ones to do, or what you would like.
I think it's a reasonable start. There's plenty of other conservation lands for dog walkers to take their dog.
Yeah, I like the balance. I like that there are places, if people want to go someplace where there's clearly marked expectation for dogs to be leashed, and other places for people to take their dogs under voice and sight control. So I'm in favor of this list.
Yeah, and we're
Yeah,
not
so
saying you
except
can't
for
take the
that
dog.
one segment of Long Lake, it would be the entire property, which makes things probably less confusing for people. So I'll take it back to the select board and see if they still want to be involved at this level of designating these, or how they want to proceed with that, and go from there.
Do you need a vote from us?
Do I have kind of general consensus that this seems like an appropriate way to go?
Yeah.
I see nodding heads. I think that's good enough.
Works for me.
Yeah. I just want to remind you, the MACC fall meeting is coming up with the fundamentals classes. They finally got their check. So you all should be getting hopefully emails with your access number for the MAC, the handbook, if you ask for one. And she said that if you go in, theoretically, there is a setting where you can either accept or deny all of their emails that come through, which may explain why some of you aren't getting their emails announcing all this stuff. So you should be getting an email saying that you're, a member with the access, and then you can go in and check your settings. And if you have any problems with it, they said just call MACC directly, and they'll make sure that you're getting the notifications you want to get.
Yeah, I got mine
That
today.
did come through for me, so yeah.
Okay, yeah, I got mine. I didn't even look at it. And with most of the fall meetings and fundamentals, just let me know if you want to sign up. We have a budget, so you can go to those as you see fit. The fundamental for new commissioners, Ed, is actually free. The other ones are, I don't know, 20 or 30 bucks or something like that. So it's no big deal. And I think Andrew's been through all of them. Michael's been through all of them. Tim's been through all of them. I think everyone's just been sort of hit or miss on some of them. So they come in very handy, and you must always learn something on the fundamental side of things. Should I keep on going?
Yep, keep rolling.
All right.
But
Nick,
others, speak up if you got questions.
Sorry, everybody. This just in, if we circle back to the Webster land discussion a little earlier, I just got an email from Carolyn, our chair in the CPC, that it looks like the meeting, the original set meeting for the next CPC, I'm talking in circles now. The next CPC meeting is scheduled for actually after the close of the warrant. So I just emailed her to see if we can get a special meeting together to consider this and potentially another request. So I'll keep Amy posted just to make sure that we're in line with fall town meeting.
Absolute worst case, I bet I can get you something tomorrow. It just might not be really pretty. So we can start from there.
Perfect.
But let me know. Nagog Orchard, will wait for Sarah to be back for that. Goals and priorities. I don't think anyone has the intellectual capacity right now to go through that. But do think about it. We need this both for the open space recreation plan update, which Andrew was going to do, as well as for the goals and priorities that go into the budgeting season, which, believe it or not, we're coming up on.
So in terms of the open space and recreation plan, we're gearing up for the final public meeting on September 20. I am at a loss here. 21st.
Yeah.
21st. Yep. So that's going to be the final one, and it's essentially going to be a presentation of all of the findings and data from the poll that we did in the first public meetings. So one thing that the consultants were really looking to gather from each member on the committee's constituents is when it comes to like goals, objectives, and actions for open space. What do we want to do moving forward? How do we want to do it? They really want ideas from us. So we were actually sent a long list of potential overarching goals, objectives underneath those, and then actions and how to move them forward. And I don't know if Amy, have they seen that yet, or is that just the blank one that we had the other day that got sent out?
Yeah, I haven't sent the whole thing that the consultant did because it was actually a little confusing. He just threw a bunch of stuff in there.
Yeah.
And I
think the only thing we've seen as a commission was that open space and recreation plan meeting 6 notes that were circulated with the agenda for tonight.
Yeah, so what I started to do, and this is where it's a mishmash of what we need for the budget as well as what we need for open space is I've fleshed this out a little bit more. This was from last year. And really think about, I'll email this to you again, if there's anything either missing on here or that you think should be taken off. We don't have to get the language nailed down. But I just want to make sure that where you think the real priorities are, which had been and may or may not still be staffing in the open space committee, versus some of the other goals and priorities that we had. The next issue being, how do you do those things? And I got to admit, for me, staffing's always an issue, but the invasive species and actually land management, mowing, and that sort of stuff are, I think, going to be the 2 big issues over the next several years. So what I said to this point is I'll send this. Tell me if this sounds right, Andrew. I'll send this to you. I was going to work on the table this weekend, but I couldn't log in. So yay. And I can send you that table so you can see stuff. And if you have ideas, just throw them at us. I don't think we need a formal vote or anything on this. So this is just your chance to have direct input for the OSRP.
Yeah, Amy, that sounds like a plan. So if anybody has any potential actions to put underneath these objectives, it's a very long list. Once you get it, you'll see it's there's a lot of information there and a lot of different directions that we could go in. So any potential things that you think we should be doing, if you could send them to Amy, that would be great. And then the committee can review them at our next meeting on Thursday of next week.
Yeah, he wanted it by the end of this week, which I don't know if that's going to happen. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, there's one on there, the perennial one of starting a prioritization, parcel prioritization type list about when you look at property to see if it's worth purchasing, because we are always reactive.
I'll tell you my opinion on that. My opinion on that has changed over the last 5 or 10 years. That you can rank all the parcels you want. What matters is what can you acquire.
Yeah, what becomes available if you have any money.
Yeah,
basically.
And I tend to agree with that, just because I feel like a list puts us at a disadvantage. Just because from a negotiating standpoint, if somebody's parcel is number 1 on our list, I mean, we're kind of hard pressed when it comes to negotiating with the owner. And then a lot of people have expressed over the years that they don't want to see their private property essentially on a list of the town, eyeing. So I think going forward, maybe more of the type of criteria rating system would be better. So if a property did come up, we can say, okay, this scored a 75 out of 100 based on the point system or criteria that we have in place of prioritized properties. But we'd actually come up with a draft one a few years ago, but it just kind of went by the wayside. So maybe we could revisit that and go from there.
So
Yeah,
like
it's something that looks.
here are the qualities of a great property. Here are the qualities of one that we would consider, but it's not so fantastic. These are the ones that we would never consider.
Exactly.
And honestly, the paradox of that is like a property that is 100% wetlands, we might never consider for an acquisition. It's not a great use of town resources.
Hey, Andrew, instead of putting the name of the parcel, you can always just put a parcel ID on it that comes off the town rolls or whatever, however the town identifies parcels. We were doing that in the feds because we ran into the same problem as people didn't want to see their name on a list. And plus properties change hands, so those names change also. So it's always better just to have a parcel ID down.
That's a good point. And I'm not sure if the owners would even be upset with just the parcel ID as well, just because it's, their land. But something to think about for sure.
A lot of times these things end up on maps. And also when you consider recreation at the same time, a small parcel might rank 0 for conservation, but it might be really high for Parks and Rec if it's like a pocket park or something. So there's some really, I don't know, not necessarily competing, but different aspects. But I think we don't need to solve it, just decide whether or not it's something that needs to be done. Basically, it's one more time, try to come up with it.
Okay. So what you're looking for from the commission, Amy, is feedback on, well, Amy and Andrew, I guess.
Yeah.
Feedback on the goals, objectives, and actions to be taken to satisfy those objectives.
Yes, it's mainly the actions, because the overarching goals are laid out with objectives underneath those, and then underneath those objectives are further actions that the consultants are really looking for.
Okay. So really feedback on the actions. Got it.
Yes, that'd be very helpful.
Or new actions, yeah. That'd be great. We'll try to get that. It's already Wednesday. I'll try to get that out tomorrow. Lakeshore, I don't think we have anything. The tree protection, I don't think we have anything in the bylaw. I'm more than happy to push that off till a lot later.
Yeah, I will just say with the tree, I talked to Matt Cahill again about like where shade tree stands and whatnot, and as much as they're working, they're not going to have anything close to being ready until next year at best, and that's still just for public land. So I guess it's useful, helpful. It's a start. And it sounds like there will be a phase 2 following that may hopefully address private property, but unless I guess I really start to push something forward here, private property is not going to be thought of or, heard.
Well, there's an action item.
Yeah. So.
And ultimately, these action items will also be 1 to 5 year timeframes too. So it's not like, for the purpose of the OSRP, it's not like we're trying to do this all in 1 year. Okay.
Yep. So what else we got here? I lost my agenda.
I think I went through it all.
Yeah, I think she just rifled through the last few there. So.
I just threw the last 3 out. So.
Very good. Okay. Any other things that you guys want to cover tonight?
Oh, on 628 Newtown.
For me.
Thank you. I was about to ask, how do we handle long-term projects?
The contractor seems to have basically walked away from this guy. This is a driveway that goes across the wetland to the house on the island.
So they dug up the driveway and left?
Yeah, fortunately, they dug up the driveway and left. So it's not going, nothing's going out of the driveway because they dug down, and the sand is there and it's not moving. But the contractor's not coming back. So I finally knocked on the guy's door, and I've been trying to call the contractor, and there's all sorts of excuses going on. So I explained to the owner, I am not managing his contractor for him. And if he can't get something done there's probably gonna be an enforcement order involved here.
This is the island?
This is the island.
Yeah, the Moat House.
Right now, he can't even get into his garage. His
No.
car is parked.
So
Yeah,
it's
they park it
turn,
on
so
the
it's
road,
turn,
right?
it's turning into our worst nightmare. It's
Not our worst nightmare.
Yeah, I could
a
think of a lot
nightmare.
worse. I could think of a lot worse things.
And what's been done is terrible.
I don't know how you guys feel, but if there isn't a resolution on this in 2 weeks, I'm not opposed to pursuing an enforcement order.
Yeah, it
And
sounds
Amy,
like
if
any
that
kind of
helps move
ordinance.
this forward with them.
I think we have
I'm not
to.
sure if it will, but because
I don't think we-
the guy can't get
I
hold of his contractor. So I said, well, that you need to get hold of your contractor. If you can't, you need to get rid of him, or you personally need to put in erosion controls, or fortunately, it's not going anywhere right now.
Like he needs a new contractor.
And he's going to pretty quickly find out that the fines for an enforcement order could add up if we chose to just deal with it that way.
Yeah.
Wasn't this approved like 2 years ago now?
I forget when it was approved.
It's been a while, I know that.
Yeah.
So when you sent me the original, I just don't remember the date.
Yeah. Well, the order conditions are good for 3 years. During COVID, there was a tolling period, so that 3 years stopped. So a lot of those got extended, and if they're within a few months of something expiring, they can come in and ask for an extension, which almost always is granted.
Sure. He doesn't even have the DEP number posted on that.
I gave him a long list.
Yeah, I know. I drive by it every day.
Yeah, I've started coming to work that way, so yay.
Looks like it might have been around April of last year, so
Oh, it's been a while. Not that long then.
it seems like it's been a while, honestly.
It felt that way, yeah. No, I would suggest that if they haven't made reasonable progress in the next 2 weeks, that we follow Chase's.
Yeah, because it's been over 2 weeks that it's been opened up already. So
Yeah.
we're looking at over a month that it's just been dug out and left.
Yeah, and that sand isn't going to stay in place indefinitely if it starts to
Especially
rain.
once there's snow and everything else.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, covered up with snow, he won't be plowing his driveway, so.
Yeah,
Ed, for whatever it's worth, that house is probably part of what gave rise to our current bylaw and 50-foot no disturb zone. Not
really?
sure that helps, but
Huh.
that project happened shortly before we enacted the bylaw.
Okay, because I know we walked the property and I didn't understand it well enough, the regs, I mean, at the time, so I didn't know what they were and weren't allowed, but they were definitely, I think Kyle, you walked it if I'm not mistaken, or maybe, I don't remember who was there now, but the people that walked it were very knowledgeable about the wetlands and the ferns and all this other stuff. It was pretty interesting.
And that was originally under some prior regulations, wasn't it, Chase?
Oh yeah, maybe that's what it was. That there was
it was
filing that actually occurred before.
That was Fred Field's last project.
Yeah, it was his last piece of property.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. It just predated or was grandfathered in.
I think so.
Regs.
Yeah.
It wasn't grandfather, but it wasn't the new regs.
Yeah. Anyway,
I have as Ed started to ask, I think of the long-term dates. I kind of scrolled down through the agenda here and looking at dates. I see Healy Corner was continued to October 17th. Is that a real date?
17.
That's been going on for like 2 years now. So whenever it comes up, I just call Bruce. I give Bruce Ringwald a call, and he thinks it's a real date. That it's a really real date this time. But they've been they got appealed on the planning board, I believe it was. So they just been on hiatus, waiting for that to get closer to resolution.
Okay.
And ditto 35 Queen.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Well, that looks like that's coming in a couple of weeks, right? Is that this?
He's Nick, who's also at GPR, is trying to get confirmation from the owner about how they or if they want to proceed.
yeah, I walked by there today. It hasn't improved.
Yeah, I bet.
So you'll enjoy that one, Ed. It's a real nightmare. Maybe a motion to adjourn, unless there's anything else.
Oh, Chase, one more update. I
Damn
just got an
you,
email.
Andrew.
I know. I'll get you guys every time. So I have one more update on the Websterlands. I just got a fresh email. Apparently, even if the meeting isn't possible to be held for the CPC before the close of the warrant, we're going to see if we can ask Ryan to put a couple of placeholders on the warrant for that particular article and a few others, and then vote on the applications at the CPC's meeting on the 20th. So the sooner we can get that in, the better, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that idea. We write it with the placeholders for CPC money and then fill in the blanks with the dollar values. You don't like that, Amy?
Not my town.
Okay, well, let's see if we can get something before that, and if not, we'll explore the
Yeah,
options.
exactly. Timeframes are going to be interesting.
For sure.
Andrew, anything else?
I think I'm good, but Amy, if you need any help putting that together, let me know, and I can help you with that.
Yeah, you know what? This might be a great opportunity to redo that form.
Oh, for the
CPC forms.
Yes, and actually, I guess a lot of people are having trouble finding it on the Newtown website.
Oh, great.
So it's a little tricky, but yeah, we should definitely look at that.
All right, I'll make a motion that we adjourn the September 5th, 2023 Conservation Commission meeting at 9:50.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerber guy.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you and good night.
Good night, everyone.